Okay, hello again, everyone. Just a short video to overview some of the aspects around the legal aspects or issues in teaching. So, I guess I want to mostly talk about one particular issue in regards to the legalities in teaching. The text, Clark and Pittaway again, broadly covers the main aspects you need to be thinking about. And I think the message here is not necessarily to get too wound up about, oh no, I could face X, Y, or Z as a teacher, and the particular requirements that you need to fulfill, or the particular legal traps you could fall in, and the potential to be sued or otherwise. Look, it very rarely happens for teachers. So the idea is as you approach the practice in schools, certainly, know that as a pre-service teacher, you certainly don't have the full gamut or spectrum of legality requirements that you need to meet in a school. Obviously, getting through the gate, there's certain working with children, etc., that you must get through and ensure that you have the relevant checks in your state for that. But when you're actually working with young people in regards to legal issues, particularly around duty of care, which I want to talk about today, because I think a lot of teachers get wound up, and you get told as well by the university that as a pre-service teacher, you don't have full duty of care. So you see that statement quite a lot in your preparedness and the documents and things in the handbooks before you go on your professional experience placement. So the issue there around duty of care, if you're not aware what that actually is in terms of a legal issue, the textbook on page 387 does define it for you. So duty of care, to avoid acts that would be likely to injure another person, and that encompasses also foreseeability. So this is all around negligence. So duty of care and negligence go hand in hand. If you're not fulfilling your duty of care, there is the potential for negligence to occur. Negligence is obviously a legal word to describe the occurrence of when somebody is injured in some form or another, and the proper precautions or supervision hasn't taken place. So foreseeability: if the consequences of the act are likely, then the teacher or the school authority is liable. Breach of duty: the standard of care of a teacher is that of a reasonable parent. So that's a very interesting statement. So there's this Latin term, you may not have heard it before. It's called in loco parentis. It basically means that the school, vis-a-vis the teachers who sit under the administration of the school and the principal, act as in loco parentis, meaning they act as if they were the child's parents. So that statement encapsulates that. So the duty of care for a teacher is as if you were a reasonable parent. Of course, we know that even students who come into our care don't have reasonable parents, but that's not reasonable parent is not the individual's parent. It is a hypothetical reasonable parent, a kind of model, as it were, of a parent acting in accordance with care of their child, whether it be care and health, ensuring that they're not going to hurt themselves, they're not going to be put in danger, or the potential that you actually foresee that happening. And the text also talks about negligence in regards to causation. So if you've caused or you haven't foreseen the cause of a particular injury. So just to kind of bring that all together and to speak from my own experience as a teacher, your duty of care, meaning your care of your students when you are supervising them, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on the bus on the way to an excursion, or in and out of the school grounds, or on duty when you're moving around the school yard on recess and lunch or break duty. Takes a lot of energy. that's for sure. That's the first thing I really noticed, even as a pre-service teacher and moving around with my mentor slash supervising teacher. That, and any parents will know this as well, even when they are teenagers, because we're going to be supervising, we have a duty of care over teenagers. They're not small children, little children who, my 4-year-old daughter still, wants to run across the road. So they at least have those kind of senses around harm, that if I run across the road, I'm likely to get hit by a car if I don't look what's happening. But still, even in the school grounds or out or in the classroom, and certainly teenagers conduct themselves, some teenagers, with at-risk behaviour. So they do things, stupid things, yes, silly things, things that they haven't thought about, and put themselves at risk, either themselves or others at risk, even their own friends, people they know. So your duty of care, when you're there watching them, monitoring them, supervising them, ensuring that they don't hurt themselves, they don't hurt others, it takes a lot of energy. As a pre-service teacher, you'll see this. It doesn't fall on you if someone injures themselves, but you nonetheless sort of get a sense of it. Certainly when you're a full-time teacher, the burden then does fall on you. You do have that full duty of care. Now, young people hurt themselves all the time. To be sure, all the time. I can assure you of that. So it's not that they won't hurt themselves, even when you do have a duty of care. It's the notion that have you act in accordance with either the school policies or department, state policies around your duty of care? If the answer is yes, there was adequate supervision. There was the room, the space was safe. There was a warning that was given, whatever the case is. But young people will still do what they want to do sometimes, and they will rock on their chair incessantly, even though you've told them 10 times not to, and then they'll fall back and clock their head on a table, and they may need some stitches. It's happened. All sorts of other things happen in schools where particularly young boys, but it's not confined to young boys, do things and they hurt themselves, whether it's being silly on a bench and falling over, or hurting themselves in all sorts of other ways. So for a school or for the individual teacher, that question arises: has there been adequate supervision in this instance? If the answer is yes, I was there, or say if we're looking at a yard duty, I was on duty. A teacher can't be everywhere at once. Perhaps when you moved away from that particular space of where a group of students were, and then something happened and the student injured themselves, that's not negligence. There was a teacher on duty, they moved through, they were maybe in another area of their prescribed zone of duty, but the students still injured themselves. Now, if the teacher didn't turn up to that duty, so you get assigned duties on your timetable when you're a full-time teacher, and you'll see this when you're on prac. You'll follow your supervising mentor teacher out on their duty in the yard. If you forget, or if you decide not to turn up because you're too busy, you're planning lessons or photocopying or having a cup of coffee with a colleague, and you don't turn up to your duty, and then a child injures themselves, then there is the potential, or the parents could argue, that the school was negligent. So it's the deputies or the principal's job to ensure that their staff members do attend their duty and do so, and they don't just stand there in one spot. They roam around, they move around. So there is a potential inroad for a negligence case. But if you turn up and you simply don't see it, or it happens behind your back, then there's no negligence in that regard. So that's in school grounds. As I said, you have a duty of care in all places, and it does take a lot of energy. It does take, you'll be exhausted. So not just from all the other things you have to do, make lots of decisions on the fly as a teacher, plan your lessons, the whole communication aspect, stand up and speak in front of groups of people hour upon hour, manage students' behaviours, plus the weight, the burden, the mental effort that duty of care supervision does take is enormous, and you will be exhausted. You get better at it, get practiced at it, it becomes less mentally taxing, but initially it will certainly be quite demanding on your capacities. That constant monitoring, and it's the worst when you go out on an excursion. I took lots of students as a social science teacher. I took lots of groups out, all sorts of places. The zoo, Holocaust memorials, the museum. Went to science centres, all sorts of different things, and it's out in public space. So there's the bus for one, but out in a public space with a group of unruly year 10s, that's highly demanding, and you're constantly on the lookout for potential for harm. A school, in a sense, can control a lot of what goes on, the grounds, all those sorts of things. But when you're out in public, in a space where you haven't necessarily, where you can't control every variable, then your duty of care is sort of ramped up. And I can tell you then, again, coming back to this legal stuff, you'll see that as soon as you want to take students out on excursion, it's a good thing to ask when you go out on your first prac, and just whether or not it's actually happening while you're there, but just to ask your supervising teacher, say, can I just have a look at the documentation that I would need to fill in if I wanted to take students? Or what documentation do you fill in when you want to take students to X, Y, or Z place? So you have a look at that kind of document. It's pages and pages long, and there are lots of things that you need to fill in, and lots of kind of understanding around potential risks or what's there, and who's going to be supervising, and et cetera, let alone budget and all that sort of thing. So have a look at those documents and see what's included in that, just to get your head around, that schools have to ensure that they have everything there just in case something happens. Now you have students who even might eat some food that they're allergic to, a peanut allergy or something like that. So you have to be really, really careful with everything and document everything because of the litigious nature of our society, that parents, if they feel the school has been negligent, and if you've gone through the materials for this topic in the duty of care slides, you'll see that it's occurred in the past. Teachers have been negligent. So there was the one case in that slideshow. So if you haven't done it, I would recommend doing it. It's quite an interesting exercise. But there was the one case of the boys playing kind of like a courtyard cricket game. So instead of being in the allocated space for cricket, maybe that was full. How those cricket nets can get popular with boys. So they, a group of boys, and I believe it was actually an all-boys private school, decided that they would make their own makeshift zone to play cricket, and they used a grate, so sort of a storm drain, a grate for where they were gonna be hitting, for the crease, and a boy ran, got a cricket bat wedged in the grate, it snapped off, and it injured him, which sounds horrible. But the issue there around duty of care, again, there's potential maybe that could have happened even with adequate supervision. But the issue there is that they actually went and asked the teacher, can they use this space? Or at some point, whether or not they started, and then there was a teacher that turned up and they said, oh, can we play here? The teacher's job in that instance would have been survey, look, get a sense of the fact that perhaps this isn't the safest space to play cricket. There's the potential for harm here, and here, let alone, perhaps windows being smashed or a student walking around the corner and, getting a cricket bat in the face. But the grate itself being used in any form of play there, with that's just common sense, isn't it? And so often this idea of duty of care does fall back on common sense. If you're a reasonable person who understands about the potential for harm in certain kinds of behaviours, running, jumping, playing, swinging, hitting, etc., then you would say, hang on a minute, this won't work, boys, and then you manage that. You say, oh, guys, it's not the safest zone to play cricket. Look, this could happen, and so let's maybe take this elsewhere. Let's maybe go with them to the cricket net, speak to who's playing, and say, okay, guys, we have another group wanting to come in. You guys have got 10 more minutes, and then you're going to swap. To me, when you drill down into that, and again, I'm just sort of theorizing, hypothesizing about the whole case, but to me, I think it all stemmed from probably laziness. The teacher went, it's fine. They couldn't be bothered to do anything else about it. And that obviously came to really bite them in the arse. So I think it's critical that when it comes to duty of care, you're not lazy, because a lazy teacher in regards to duty of care, the potential for unsafe behaviours to happen is greatly increased, and then the potential for harm from that unsafe behaviour is greatly increased. So, look, teachers can be lazy in all sorts of ways, and sometimes, look, I was lazy in the classroom where I, gave students some busy work because I had other stuff I needed to do. Sure, that goes on all the time, but I still gave them adequate supervision. In a way, you can get away with that from time to time, but never be lazy when it comes to your duty of care, because you just don't know what could happen. So it's something that parents, I'm sure, are well aware of. If you're a parent, you probably have an understanding of that. You can't, the more times or the more likely you are just to not do something or be lazy about, that important supervision of young children, the more likely it is they're going to hurt themselves. So the same goes for teenagers, really, and schools, administrators, teachers must be very, very careful. And you'll find when you do start to sit in your staff meetings and things like that, this is often an issue that is talked about, whether it be the handling of kids' medication or potential for anaphylactic shock now from eating certain foods or being allergic to certain things, whether it be yard duties and ensuring that everybody is doing that, or forms and regulations that teachers need to adhere to. It's pretty ubiquitous. So I think that's probably about it for this particular video. Just short explanation there around the legal issues in teaching. So from here on out as well, if you've stayed with me in regards to these videos, there's only a couple more topics. There's one on the interview, which you may have done already and started to explore with your teacher, participant that you're interviewing, some of the questions, and many people have been sending me some of their great questions, and that's fantastic. And then there's another one on the portfolio, and if you've seen on the Facebook page, topic 10 is about beginning to build your portfolio. There is a tab in the unit page around your portfolio. It may not be live yet. It's like any day now, so just hold off on that. As well, I'm going to be doing a final video series at the end of the unit, just to kind of wrap up and talk to any other broader issues that we've carried along throughout the whole unit. So please, for that final video, to make it the most meaningful that I can, I would love for you to pose any questions that you have, and I'll set a reminder. I'll put it up on Facebook. Any questions you have of things you're really interested in. It could be anything. It doesn't really matter. Anything related, obviously, to teaching, and could be my own experiences you want more information about. Teaching in London, for example. My thesis about emotions in teaching, if you want me to explore more about that. Other questions you may have about really anything that we've covered in this unit. Just try and steer away from anything like, what do we learn about in the future units and other units and things like that. Try to stick it to the themes, the broad themes or topics that we've covered in this unit. And then hopefully that final video will be quite engaging for you, because you'll have had input into what I can give you in that last part of the unit, because we have almost reached the end. It has gone rather quick. So again, thank you for staying with me in these videos. I've enjoyed recording them every week, and yeah, look forward to doing the last one.